My name is Chukwuemeka Nwachukwu, and I'm very happy and elated to be here today and to speak on the topic AI's role in the future of healthcare. I've listened to all the speakers this morning, and very wonderful and brilliant rendition, wonderful speeches, and I mean, very, very resourceful and very, very mind-blowing. And not to flog on what has been said or what my other speakers has already said, I just need to only pinpoint on AI's role in healthcare, which is very, very predominant, which is something which we need in our climate, which we need here in Nigeria, especially because the ability for us to automate the way the health system works would really, really improve, the economy, really, really improve our health and also underlying sicknesses here. And yeah. So, like I introduced myself, Chukwuemeka Nwachukwu. I'm a digital project manager with the University Hospital of Derby and Bolton, NHS England, which is based in Derby, in the Midlands in the United Kingdom. My topic is very, very particular to my role. As a digital project manager, I manage projects in which we deliver on how the healthcare system is being improved in the UK. So the NHS stands for the National Health System, which is a public service used by every individual unless you want to go private. So that being said, I will go into the agenda of today's topic. So we're talking about how AI is being used in healthcare, practical strategies for integrating AI into healthcare. It's very important because we need to talk about the data analytics levels. We need to also talk about the risk. The adoption or integration of AI doesn't come without risk. It has to. And there will be challenges. There will be ethical concerns. There will be considerations. And we'll also look at the future potential. And I'm happy to take a Q&A, one or three questions. So how is AI being used in healthcare? We're talking about early detection. In this early detection, I have a picture to really show this, but that picture is in the next slide, but I wouldn't want to preempt you yet. But in early detection, could you please go to the next slide? Could you please go to the next slide so I could discuss about this? So how many of you saw this tweet some 10 days ago? Yeah, very few hands. So on the 8th of October, Nikias made a tweet and he said, "My Apple Watch Series 10 detected my grandmother's atrial fibrillation today using the ECG feature. She's now at the hospital and receiving the care she needs. I still can't believe it." That is how AI, that is how technology marvels us and at the same time doing what we humans can do. So this is Nikia's granny, who is about 94 years. She's got the Apple series. That could be a 9 or a 10. I'm not too sure now, right? So because she's wearing that watch, which at the same time shows her, right, her blood pressure, glucose level, and whatnot, ECG and everything, how many steps she's taking a day, that detection is there already. So if she's got a high blood pressure, the watch is already triggering and the ambulance is being called. At the same time, there is a detection and there is a diagnosis. So if you go previously before the slide for the picture, right? Before that, so the early detection and diagnosis, which is one, for instance, the watch, and there's a latest version of the AirPod which Apple has made. And now this version helps you or serves as a hearing aid. Before now, the latest one used to be the AirPod serves as noise cancellation. So, a few years back, we've seen people crushed to death because of an unmoving car, hitting them because they blocked their ears with the AirPod or the earpiece or whatever they're using to play music or listen to a podcast or something. And by then, they're not hearing anything. And Even when the car is honking at you, you can't hear it. But Apple has really made it to be very easy for you, noise cancellation. And now it works as a hearing aid. So you could just wear your AirPods, you're not listening to anything, but you could pick up footsteps, you could pick up the background noise and everything coming up. So that's the latest feature of the AirPod, and that's the detection there and the diagnosis. There's a personalized treatment plan, which AI is being used now. So let's say, for instance, 4 months ago, so each time I go into the shop, let's say Tesco, Sainsbury, Ledo, one of the big shops, or let me say, for instance, if I'm going into ShopRite, and I'm always using my prepaid card to shop. For instance, I'm buying chocolates and I'm buying cookies. So I was always going into this shop, Tesco, to buy chocolates and cookies to give my nephew, to give my nephew who always wants to get something from me. So it's happened on a weekly trend. And for some reason, I was now seeing adverts, cookies of diabetes on my phone. And I was like, what's happening? And I had to ring Tesco, and I was like, I'm not happy with the ad you're showing me. I mean, what's with all this diabetes and all that? So they had to explain to me that because I've been swiping my card at the till, and they found out that there is a regular product I always buy from them, which is the chocolate. And it's showing me that in 4 or 5 years to come, I might be prone to diabetes. That is just it. And I was like, okay, but how do you know I'm the one taking the chocolate? It's just a little boy of 2 or 3 years, not me. But I've just passed the message. Do you understand me? That's the personalized treatment plan and all that. So with that being said, if such trend is being picked up with my card and at some point it gets hold of my health system or health record, my doctor will call me and my doctor will start asking what's wrong, right? So AI uses the algorithm. So each time I go to visit my doctor, he has my health record, right? And each medicine or each medication I buy from the pharmacy, because I can't just go to the pharmacy and I get a medicine on the counter, unless it's paracetamol or, let's say, a lesser pain relief. But every other medication, it has to be prescribed for you. And for every medication you get, it's being documented in your health record. So with that being said, a personalized treatment plan will come from all those medications you've been having, right? The lifestyle you live. Now, the lifestyle has been detected. I always buy chocolates. And now it's telling me in 4 to 5 years' time, I'm having diabetes, right? All those patterns, everything there makes up that personalized treatment plan. So they're already building a treatment plan for me in the 2nd year or in the 3rd year, leading to that 4th year, which is very, very mind-blowing. But at the same time, that data is biased because I'm not the one who is consuming that, but they've already prepared that for me, right? We'll come to the ethical concerns, which I will also pinpoint at this example. We're talking about the predictive analysis for preventive care. So that data needs to be trained, right? So the ability to train that data to say, oh, Chooks is not the one consuming that, right? To make sure that algorithm is right is a very important figure, and that is how AI is being used. Drug discovery for people who want to go into genomics and all that. I mean, these are studies we've made. AI helps you to alter genetics, get those drugs, drug discovery. And in drug discovery, you could know the toxicity of a medication, right? How toxic that medication is. You could edit the gene. You could train that model to make sure that you're preparing for the future. So if there's an outbreak of Ebola coming now, AI could be able to predict that Ebola will be coming in the next 2 to 3 years because that model has been trained. And what causes Ebola? If, let's say, a 1,000 number of people goes into the healthcare and they have this medical condition, which is very prone to Ebola, they'll also check their travel plans. And if it matches with places where this disease is very, very rampant, it also triggers that. And we talk about patient experience. And in that, you're having an example, EPR. So EPR is electronic patient record, or BadgerNet, right? So BadgerNet is an example we gave ours in the hospital where I work, which is the project I delivered as a digital project manager. So, like I said, if I ring up my doctor, the first thing the secretary asks me is, what's your NHS number? Like, what is my health number, my health record number? And when I mention that number, on the screen of the secretary. I'm privy to this information because I work behind the scene. So it's not that the privacy, but just to let you know how these records are being used. So the first thing the secretary or the doctor asks me is, what's the NHS number? And when I say it, he is seeing, first of all, have I got the record to be in that country? Or have I got access to free medical care? Or have I got any underlying health condition? Or have I got any previous medication which I'm taking? All those are being listed. All those are being listed before him because there is an electronic patient record. What beside you, you go to a hospital in Nikeja or wherever in the mainland or in the island, and you go to the hospital or you go to the maternity and you get a card, they give you a card and all that, and they tell you to come back next 2 weeks with that card for your next section. And going back home that day and Rem beats you mercilessly. What's your future? What's the hope for you? So why we need patient experience, why we need AI to be utilized in this area is because we want it to be automated, we want it to be digitized, right? So that's scenario whereby we could have people who could build something like an EPR for our hospitals here will make a very much bold experience, will make a very much similar use, other than allowing us to go to the hospital with our cards or with, let's say, leaflets and papers, which could be destroyed or which could be carelessly mistaken. But just having that synchronized number will help you. I know we have the NHS IS here, which is the health insurance scheme, but it's not enough for everybody, and not everybody is on that scheme here in Nigeria, right? Healthcare data management, right? So because of all this data is being collected, right, by the hospital, by the government, by the agencies where you signed up, this data needs to be managed. And just me mentioning that number, right, all this information is before the screen of the user. And to manage this data is very efficient, and that's why you need AI to be utilized in that area. We're talking about robotic surgery. I mean, China has built 3,000-bed hospital, which is being managed by robots, right? Not we build, not is going to build. China has built, right? Imagine going to the hospital and that robot walks to you, and maybe they're performing a surgery on you, and imagine the robot telling you to turn aside for them to like cut you open, and you refuse. Okay, you must turn, no? Do you understand? So, but I'm joking, but that's not what the robot will do. But can you imagine yourself being operated by a robot, right? I'm telling you, a 3,000-bed hospital. Google that, you'll find it. So, who is training that robot? Who is training that model? I mean, a lot of LLP, language processing, LLMs, and all that. So, the ability to train this model, to get the right algorithm, to get the right model is very important. And these are ways where AI is being used in healthcare, right? So after this, we're having this picture which I've shown you, and I think, okay, the slide is not going nowhere. So practical strategies to integrate AI in healthcare. The first thing, which is we have to involve clinicians in AI design. Very, very important. Right? You can't be building AI for healthcare and you're not involving medical doctors, psychologists, nurses, clinical oncologists, and every other person. It's very, very rude to the profession to ignore them, and it's very, very foolish to not build this system without the health professionals. It's just like, I mean, you're having an education minister who only knows something about sports, or you're having a minister of engineering who knows nothing about engineering structures. I mean, you're just preparing yourself for ruin and damage. So you need to involve clinicians in AI design. The clinicians need to impute what they understand, how best they want this to be done, which is the first step. There has to be that human partnership amongst everybody, both the government, both the clinicians, both the private sector, I mean, whoever is bringing the fund, and the academia too, because that forms part of the research. I mean, a gentleman spoke here today about how to research from anywhere, right, in AI and also in machine learning. I mean, he talked about this. So that partnership needs to be there. There needs to be training and education. So when you involve these clinicians, because they are new to this sector, you have to really train them. You have to educate them. You have to also retrain them. You need to leverage on cloud computing, right? I mean, move away from on-premise to on-cloud. right? If you're used to having all your documents on paper, like let's go search his record from 1999, they're going to bring out a file, dust it, clean everywhere for it. It has to end, because if you keep doing it that way, you lose data and so many ethical concerns surrounding that. You need to also leverage on edge computing. So in edge computing, you could allow a device to use that network remotely at the edge of the network or on-premise. There needs to be continuous improvement, right? For you to utilize AI well to model an algorithm, there has to be continuous improvement. You need to retrain that model so well. You need to get feedback loops from the user, from the design. If you're really into software development lifecycle, you understand the stages from alpha stage, beta, to release and all that. There has to be post-deployment monitoring, which is simply management. You need to always maintenance, which is very important. You need to address the ethical concerns. When I ring up my doctor, or when I ring up whoever that has access to this information in front of their screen, how well do they use this information? Are they selling it to someone, right? Who is behind this? Who has access to all these levels and all these tiers of my information? The quality of the data has to be accurate. When I mentioned about going to the shop to buy that chocolate, right? That wasn't my data, but because of my card was used, automatically they are preparing that for me, or preparing for me to come into the hospital and say I am diabetic, but it won't happen, right? There has to be an AI governance team, right? For you to have AI in place, there has to be a governance team, and which we talk about in the policies which every government has. Because in this governance team, you talk about the ethics, you talk about how well this can be utilized and who uses it, and areas where it could be funded also. And we talk about the data analytics levels, which is the 4 levels of data analytics, and which is very important to AI development. We're talking about the descriptive analytics, which is what happened. In this area, you're talking about, or you're observing or reporting. Now you're observing this data and you're looking at it. That period of observation, what happened, why, and all that, you also need to report it. You're talking about the diagnostic analysis, which is where you question, why did this happen, right? Ask the why, question the data. So you're not just observing now, reporting like you did in descriptive. You're now questioning the data. Why is this so, right? Why did it happen? When did it happen? And all that. So the next step, you're talking about the predictive analysis, where you're predicting. You're predicting the algorithm. You've trained it to say, oh, in future, in the next 3 or 4 years, it might tend to go this way, right? In predictive analysis, you're having the machine learning, you're having the AI, you're having the algorithms. All 3 of them are synergizing. So this is where the data science comes in place. So for data scientists, the predictive analysis is always the core of what they do. And you're having the prescriptive analysis, which is the powerful and the final stage, right? So this is where the data says, this is what it should be. How can we make it happen? You're now making a recommendation. You're no longer predicting. You're saying this is what it should be, and this is what it needs to be. So if you understand these 4 levels of data analytics, you're really understanding how well you could train a model, how well you could present data very well. And like I said, there wouldn't be AI without risk. So we need to understand that significant risk is associated with development of this new technology, right? And it's crucial for us to address and acknowledge it. We can't just be talking about AI. What is the risk? It has to be talked about, right? I mentioned about robots coming to operate on you. What is the risk of that, right? We need to also remove that bias in our mind, right? The data had to be authentic. That data had to be authentic. I use myself an example. The data for that chocolate is not authentic because that's not my data, right? I'm just unfortunate to use my card to purchase that. The risk of generated data dominating the web, AI forgets. Take ChatGPT, for example, right? You could go on ChatGPT and you just write anything that doesn't even make sense. ChatGPT brings it out for you. How? Right? So when you see that you've written this and it doesn't make any sense, And at the end of the day, you could see that in the next, in the next 2 to 3 months, ChatGPT have released a new version, right, or has really debugged the system. That same thing you typed has been retrained, and you give a more concrete information. So which means the result it gave you 2 or 3 months does not exist anymore because AI forgets, right? The risk of disinformation and fake news. Oh, AI is taking our jobs, AI is doing this, AI is doing that. That's not true. You really need to understand that the augmentation or the way it complements what you're doing is what AI is there to do, right? The risk of disinformation is so much, and we need to significantly curtail our ability to experience the reality. It's more like a bloodline, so you need to really see through it, other than looking like some information that is being encrypted. And there are so many ethical implications where we talk about the regulatory hurdles. Like I said, the government, the governance in it. You need to build an AI governance team, which I mentioned, right? The government of the day might be a stumbling block to what you want to develop, what you want to implement. There will be complexities in adopting the AI system. If you don't understand it, you don't understand it. It might sound gibberish to you. It might sound like a fairy tale because you don't understand it. There is bias and inequality, right? So you find out that so many black people, right? You could see that there are so many bias in their health records, which could tell you that people from this part of the world are so susceptible to this particular disease because that model has been trained to see every black person having high blood pressure by the age of 30. That model is wrong. So who has really trained it? The person who is in charge. So because of the biased nature of that person, you could see that. Thank you so much. Right? Data privacy and security, very important. Right? If that data is not securely put in place, it might be in the hands of a very, very, mischievous person. It could be in the black market or wherever. I mean, months ago, we saw an investigation where our NI and BVN is somewhere in, some market, and it's very, very wrong, right? That data privacy is very important. AI and machine learning remains a black box, right? People are still trying to know what is this all about. AI and ML did not start in 2024. Neither did it start in 2015. It's been here in the 90s, but it's been always modernizing, and people are still getting to know about AI in 2024, and so will it be in 2030. Do you understand? Job displacement, right? Because yes, the technology helps you to automate. Do you get me? And at the same time, if a job needed by 10 people, you're not having only 2 or 3 people to do the job. So which is why as data analysts, scientists, or as an enthusiast in technology, always try to train and be ahead of the curve because you might be needed in any sphere of tech. There is limited access to it because of cost, barrier to entry, and so many factors. The legacy system and integration. If this is done today, or if this is being adopted by a government of this administration, with the next administration continue that. So these are the information. These are the concerns. So in terms of future potential, we talked about mental health support. So AI is being used in speech therapy training, right? So there are some comments, there are some ways where an individual might start to reason or think about, and they get triggered by their phone. So this is being carried out by a research in the Netherlands, and you could get mental health support from that, which is also AI is listening. I talked about AI and genomics. For people who want to go into drug discovery, AI is very much used in that sector. And scientists these days don't just go into the lab and spend like 20 or 24 odd hours in the lab. Now, it's no longer done that way. So assisted surgery in robotic, I've talked about that. Telemedicine and remote monitoring. You could have your doctor consulting you online without you needing to come into the hospital and all that. Smart technology. I've talked about the Apple AirPod, which is now used for as a hearing aid. We talk about your Apple smartwatch, which keeps modernizing. The Series 10 now is very fantastic and all that. So quickly, we'll go into the government regulatory initiatives, which is very important. you cannot talk about AI without talking about the ethics, and which is why the first one you're having the Nigeria's national AI strategy, which is the one which Minister Bosun and his government has really put in place. So find that document, find that policy paper, and read through it word to word. If you're an AI enthusiast, data analyst, or whatever in tech, always know what your government has put in place for technology. It is very easy, so that we need to keep asking the right questions. We need to keep pushing the government to do what is right, to ensure that the integration of AI is in our ecosystem. I mean, you have UNESCO, the EU's AI4, and you have the OECD, which is the worldwide one. So whatever you're looking for in AI principle and ethics is contained in the OECD and all that. So every country has their EU, US, Brazil, China, and the rest of them. But most of them are voluntary organizations. And working with organizations to embed AI, right? How can we do this? Right, it could be in the regulatory industry. As a lawyer, you could work in, looking after the ethics in AI, very vast, right? Data sharing and agreement is very important because there has to be a binding document for organizations to embed this. You need to consider that it requires time, effort, and legal team to set this up. You need to also understand that it's based on trust, right? Where there is no trust, you could see that someone will be so scared or maybe skeptical to commit into this because of the ethical concerns there. There are so many countries. You're talking about the US kicking out TikTok or kicking out, you can't use WeChat in the US because the US has banned it. So they feel like China is spying on them and all that. So, and it costs China a lot of money because there are so many ethical concerns there for, because the US had to find them. So it's typically a project specific. So in AI, you're looking at a project. What are you delivering? What are you working on? So it's more like you're not just building something out of, nowhere. You have to have a project you're working on and all that. Look at the data archives. Have you got your data assets on site, or are you still on, or are you migrated on cloud? Your data may not be up to date. You have to always look into that and make sure you keep your data up to date. The research carried out in 2022, as of this year, might be upscale. That is how data is fast improving. So you might not be referring to what happened in 2022, but what is happening now, right? And most times it might be lengthy and expensive to process the infrastructure needed. Your government might not be able to go into this because it costs a lot, or there might be no return on investment on it, but which is what we need to keep improving on. And that is it. And to look at this figure, so I use the US as, let's say, an example. In the year 2023, the US recovered about 19.27 billion. They made about 19.27 billion because they adopted AI in their healthcare. And in this year, before the end of December, they are projecting 26 billion. And up to 2024, which is 10 years from now, they are estimating 630 billion into their economy because they embedded AI into healthcare. And you ask yourself, how much will AI make for Nigeria in 2024? These are the questions. But if we adopt this, it will really be there. And moving over to my last slide, within the last 50 seconds left. So AI is not just machine learning. You have to know this, right? So if you're talking about AI, machine learning is involved, but it's not just machine learning, right? Both machine learning and AI, they are not fairy dust. The person talking about this is not yarning gibberish, or the people who are involved in this is not yarning gibberish. It is part of our life now, and we have to be mindful of that. We need to balance innovation with caution. So as we are building rapidly, we need to always apply caution and know that we are building this for humans, not for animals, or not for, still objects. And it's AI, the alchemy of our times. It's the latest thing ongoing now. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chris Nwachukwu.